Good morning to all of you and welcome to the session, the Hindu editorial analysis for proficiency in English. What is today's editorial about? It starts with one word, circumvention. If you know the meaning of that particular word, it is rather easy. If you don't know the meaning, you should find out the meaning. Only then you can understand what exactly the editorial wants to convey. Circumvention means to avoid something cleverly or illegally. There are two dimensions. Only to avoid, we use the word bypass, but to avoid something cleverly or illegally, we use the word circumvention. So this goes with what? Circumvention goes with the center avoiding the elected parties at the state level, or the center avoiding the state governments and dealing directly with the officials. So that way, it is rather not, the editorial says it has a duty to consider the state, the power in the state or the governments at the state level. It cannot circumvent, it cannot go for circumvention. In a nutshell, that is editorial about. Now let us see how it starts and what exactly you can learn from this editorial. If you take circumvention, it means, as I said, to avoid something cleverly or illegally. Generally, what happens if you take a particular law, there are certain loopholes. Some people they try to avoid the law using those loopholes. Then we use the word circumvention. But here the context is entirely different. The center has a duty not to bypass political leadership in dealing with states. The editorial talks about the role of the center. It has a duty. What is that duty? It has to consider the states, the power at the state level. So it says the center has a duty not to bypass, not to avoid cleverly political leadership in dealing with states. Now, there are a few words. This goes with polity. There are a few words that go with polity, important. Let us have a look at some of the words. The first one, bypass. Bypass is rather easy. Good morning to all of you once again. Bypass is an easy word. What does it mean? Avoid. Generally, we use it in everyday English or conversation English. We say bypass road. But here it means avoid the state governments. And wielding. Wielding also goes with everyday English. Wielding means something like exercising power, and also it goes with effective English as well as written English. In this particular context, the center exercising its power. Now let us go to the next word, refrain. Refrain is also an important word. Refrain means what? It means to stop oneself from doing something. You stop yourself from doing something, then it is called refrain. And this goes with again everyday English as well as written English. Now coming to counterparts, that goes with business context usually. And counterpart means a person with similar powers or similar designation in some other place. I'm the manager of a company in one particular place. There's another manager of the same company in some other place. Then I refer to that person as my counterpart. Then precedent, that again goes with polity, a precedent, an event, an earlier event that is used as an example. Now, citing already we have got many a time means what? Quoting, giving as an example. Thank you very much, Shivkumar Paila, you are there. So am I. Citing means quoting. Obliged. Obliged means morally bound to do something. Stipulate, I use quite often, stipulated time period. Stipulate means demand or specify certain requirements. Comply, we have got many a time. Comply means what? Comply means to follow rules, regulations. It takes a preposition comply with. So these are the words you're going to learn. And today you're going to work on error location. You're going to work on parajumble. You're going to work on word swap. Very difficult in my opinion. I don't know how you guys find those sentences. As usual, the last exercise, words and meanings. Now let us go to the editorial and ask a few basic questions. What is this editorial about? What is the broad framework? And is it important? What is its significance? Coming to the basic question, what is this editorial about? If you take India as such, India is It is not federal. The editorial says a federal country. India is not a federal country. It is quasi-federal. Quasi, you can say, a quasi, you can say that also. Either way, the word pronunciation is correct. What is the spelling of that word? Quasi. You can say quasi or quasi, means apparently real but not actually real. Something looks real apparently, but it is not real. India is not a federal state, looks like a federal state. So we use the term quasi federal, means what? Partly central and partly unitary, partly federal. So in a system like this, obviously, we have to consider the role of the center. That is very important. And the editorial says it is, what is this about? It is about the center's duty not to bypass the political leadership in dealing with states. Now the party at the center is different. The parties at the states, they are different. Now this talks about the duty of the center not to bypass. It has to respect the state governments and the power at the states, at the state level. It should not bypass the political leadership in dealing with states. So this is the main idea of the editorial. And based on this, it goes about talking about the present, why they have to write this, what is the stimulus to write this particular editorial, and what is the role of the center in a system like quasi-federal. I would like to reiterate, it is not federal, it is quasi-federal. Now, what is a broad framework? Now, broad framework is very important when it comes to writing about the editorial. I have told you guys you have to maintain 3 notebooks, and one is knowledge bank. In the knowledge bank, you have to write about this editorial in brief, in your own sentences. You may ask, sir, why should we do that every day? If you do that, in the long run, you will be able to write about a particular topic when it comes to essay writing or when it comes to letter writing. So this will definitely help in the long run. And you all know, quite often I say, descriptive paper is a deciding paper. It makes or breaks your selection. So, what is a broad framework? First, when you read the editorial, here I'm trying to help you guys, but eventually you should be able to do it on your own. So, what is a broad framework? It starts with wielding power, exercising power, that is a center, and it has a responsibility. Wielding power comes with responsibility because of the quasi-federal system. Now, editorial says there is an obligation on the center. It has to respect the state governments, the power at the state level, and it should not bypass. It is the center's duty not to bypass. Then it talks about the background information, the recent developments. It gives 2 examples, and it also talks about the concerns based on these two, and it provides examples. Then it talks about what is the purpose of having meetings like that with the officials directly, sidelining the elected governments. Then it talks about the purpose or the objective. After that, it talks about the specific response, and it takes the example of Tamil Nadu state, the response from a particular state, Tamil Nadu state. Then it talks about the precedent. Did it happen in the past? It gives an example. It did happen during the tenure of Rajiv Gandhi. It gives that example. And it also talks about what exactly the law says regarding that. And obviously, the center ignores the state governments. You come across the typical reaction of resentment. This is an important word. Resentment means a feeling of displeasure, a feeling of anger because you feel you have been not properly treated. And all of a sudden, out of context, I feel it talks about Disaster Management Act. Finally, at the fag end of the editorial, it provides its opinion, what center has to do, keeping everything in mind for the smooth functioning of this quasi-federal system. There's a broad framework. Now, before I go to the actual editorial, let us have a look at the significance. Is it important? You should always ask the question, is this editorial important? Answer, yes, because it is polity related. Any editorial related to polity, in my opinion, not that easy to comprehend, and it is important from comprehension point of view, especially when it comes to the editorial talks about the functions or the powers of the center and the state. The editorial talks about the constitution and the rules, the provisions, all that. Definitely you have to consider, because when it comes to a passage, what is the toughest thing for the candidates? It is comprehension. So this is an important editorial from comprehension point of view. Now let us go to the actual editorial, and here Shiv Kumar Paila says he has got selected as auditor in CGDA. He has been, last year he was quite active during the sessions. I'm glad to know that Shiv Kumar, and congratulations. Very good, keep it up, and you could be a role model to others, and you could guide a few students. That's very good. Now let us go to the editorial. Circumvention, that's an important word. Nowadays, this word is in the limelight. It is being used. You may ask, sir, why is it in the limelight? How is it in the limelight? When it comes to environmental projects, a lot of loopholes are there, and the industries and those who want to establish industries, which obviously many of them spoil the environment, disturb the balance of the environment or the ecosystems, they try to use this circumvention. Means what? They try to avoid the law cleverly or illegally by using the loopholes in the law. This is the actual meaning of the word circumvention. This is the present context. But coming to the editorial, it talks about the center avoiding the states in a smart way or in a clever way. That is not easy to understand by looking at one particular word, circumvention. Whenever you come across a word like this, in my opinion, now I'm here to give the meaning, but imagine some other editorial and you cannot, you don't know the meaning of that particular word. Obviously, you have to refer the dictionary. Kalyan, what is this voice? Could you please be more specific? Is any problem with the voice? Others, you could also respond. I think it is on, nothing wrong with the voice. The center has a duty not to bypass political leadership in dealing with states. This is the main idea. The center has a duty. What is the duty of the center? Not to bypass, not to avoid political leadership in dealing with states. Not to avoid the political leadership in dealing with states. That's what it has done in the recent incidents. Wielding power at the center comes with great responsibility. So it starts with a statement. What is that statement? Wielding power, that's an important word. One meaning, wielding power means you show a tool, a stick, something like that, and you try to intimidate or threaten someone, exercise power. But in this context, it means using power or exercising power by the center. And the editorial says it comes with responsibility, great responsibility. So, okay, there's no problem with the voice, I suppose. Fine. For a minute, that's okay. Now, what is this great responsibility? A major responsibility in a federal country. As I said, it's not a federal country, it is quasi-federal. A major responsibility in a quasi-federal country with strong centralizing features is to maintain the balance as well as mutual respect between political structures at the central and state levels. As I said, whenever we deal with quasi-federal system, the center has a role to play and the states have a role to play. We have to balance both the center, the roles of the center, as well and the roles of the states. This sentence talks about that. In particular, it is an obligation of the center to refrain from bypassing the elected leadership while dealing with states. It, in particular, now usually what happens, center state, obviously center has the upper hand. Based on that, the sentence talks about, in particular, this is an important phrase. It means specifically, especially. It is an obligation of the center to refrain from bypassing the elected leadership while dealing with states. Now, it is an obligation. It is in present tense. It's a fact. It's an obligation. An obligation. Obligation, an important word. It means what? Something you have to do because either it is your duty or you have promised to do it. So it is an obligation of the center to refrain. Another important word, refrain. Refrain, restrain, related words. So what exactly does the word refrain mean? To stop yourself from doing something, usually something bad, and it goes with, it has a negative connotation. In the sense, it goes with bad habits, doing something bad. Refrain yourself from alcohol, refrain yourself from bad habits. A typical expression. So what does it mean? Avoid yourself. As I said, the editorial talks about the role of the center, the duty of the center not to avoid or bypass the state governments. The sentence reiterates the same idea. Now the editorial presents the backdrop information. What is the backdrop information? Two recent developments have raised concern that the center wants to give instructions to officials functioning under elected state regimes. Now it talks about two recent developments and they cause a concern, something disturbing. Two recent developments have raised concern that the center wants to give instructions to officials functioning under elected state regimes. Already have got the word regime. Regime means what? A particular government ruling a particular area, and it means a government, acting government. So this talks about the incidents where the central government is supposed to deal with the state governments. Instead of that, the center started dealing with, in the recent developments, started dealing with the officials directly, ignoring the state regimes. Not a good thing according to the editorial. And it provides another example to justify that statement. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held two virtual meetings with district magistrates and state officials to review the COVID-19 situation. This is an example, specific example. Now, under Education Minister, again one more specific example. Under Education Minister Ramesh Pokhriyal held a virtual meeting to discuss a national education policy and related matters such as the conduct of Class 12 examinations with state secretaries in charge of education. These two sentences talk about examples to justify the statement that the center has ignored the state governments or bypassed the state governments. Now, the next sentence talks about the purpose, the objective of these meetings. While such meetings may help the Prime Minister or any union minister get some feedback from the field across India. So, what is the purpose of these meetings? Obviously, to get the feedback. Nothing wrong with that. While such meetings may help the Prime Minister or any union minister get some feedback from the field across India, it is quite unusual for leaders in the central political executive to bypass their counterpart in the states. It is not usual for the central leaders to bypass their counterparts at the state level or in the states. Now, there is one expression, it is quite unusual. You can also say it is quite strange, it is quite weird, it is quite abnormal. Abnormal doesn't go in this context, but generally you can say it is quite unusual, it is quite strange, it is quite weird, to use an American expression. So, what is quite unusual? The central leadership ignoring the state leaders or the state governments. And there's one particular word you have to learn, rather important, but goes with business context. Counterparts. What does it mean? Imagine there is something like a person, a manager in India, and the same company, they have a branch in some other country. There's another manager. The designations are the same, functions are the same, but one is in India, the other one is in some other country. Then how does the manager in India refers? How does he refer to the manager in some other country? He says, that person is my counterpart. That manager is my counterpart. That's an important word, do remember. Now tomorrow you may have to, once you get selected, you may talk about your counterparts in some other place. Now in the states, at the state level, in the states. So important phrase. And the Tamil Nadu minister, now it talks about the response, specific response from Tamil Nadu state. The Tamil Nadu Minister for School Education, Anibal Mahesh Poyamozi, took the right stand by not deputing any official to represent the state in Mr. Pokhriyal's virtual interaction. So this is an example from the state of Tamil Nadu and the stand taken by the Tamil Nadu Minister for School Education. He did not send any official, and the editorial says it was right on his part. It says he took the right stand. Right stand, again important expression. It is in the past. The idea was not to boycott the meeting. So what was the idea of this minister from the state, Tamil Nadu state? It was not to boycott the meeting, but to say the minister ought to have been included in a discussion on the NEP. So it was not to boycott. It was not the intention. It was to tell that they should have included the minister, ought to have been included. This is an important expression for two reasons. One, it is in passive voice, ought to have been included, that is in passive voice. The other one, ought to. In Western countries, this has become outdated. We still use it. In the past, formal English ought to, informal English should. Now, modern English, either formal or informal, we use should, ought to has become outdated. Both mean the same. What does it mean? They are used to express, to advise or suggest someone. To advise or suggest someone. Now it talks about the precedent, whether there was a president or not. The Prime Minister addressing district magistrates or collectors directly without considering the state governments does have a precedent. Does have a precedent. They could have said it has a precedent, but what is this does have a precedent? It is used to emphasize. If you ask someone, do you like English? If someone asks you, do you like English? For God's sake, don't say I don't like. You'll be in trouble. Casually, you can say, yes, I like English, but you want to emphasize what are you supposed to say? Yes, I do like English. The same way, does have a precedent. It's an important expression you got to remember. And which sentence do you want me to explain, Sunita? Please explain the sentence, sir. So, precedent means an earlier incident used as an example, used for reference. What is that earlier incident? The editorial provides the example. Rajiv Gandhi addressed the heads of the district administration in Uttar Pradesh when it was under Congress rule. That should be, you should make a note of that, on the issue of Panchayati Raj. So this is the precedent. It talks about Rajiv Gandhi addressed the heads of the district administration in Uttar Pradesh when it was under Congress rule on the issue of Panchayati Raj. But they tried to defend that, they tried to justify. The defense then was that such direct interactions were permissible under the Constitution, citing Articles 256 and 257. Based on quoting Articles 256 and 257, that time they justified saying that yes, permissible, acceptable, can be justified. That was the defense. Now that was a different situation. How was it a different situation? At the center, Congress was ruling, and Uttar Pradesh also Congress was in power. Present situation is entirely different. Center BJP, different states, different parties. That way, that results in some sort of resentment. These provisions, so the articles 256, 257, these provisions stipulate that the states are obliged to comply with laws made by Parliament and also allow some directions from the union government. So these articles talk about what? Stipulate. That's an important word. Stipulate means to demand something specific. Usually it goes with an agreement, it goes with a contract, stipulate certain conditions, demand certain conditions, put certain conditions. But I use is generally a different expression altogether. I say you got to be alert, you got to be attentive because you have to answer 30 questions in 20 minutes within the stipulated time period of 20 minutes. Stipulated time period, that's a standard expression. I use that quite often. Stipulated time period. In the actual exam, 20 minutes to answer 30 questions. So stipulate that the states are obliged. Obliged means morally bound to do something, to comply with. This is an important word, though you have got many a time. Comply with laws. Remember the preposition, that's important from the exam point of view. Comply with means to follow rules and regulations made by Parliament and also allow some directions from the union government. Easy to understand. If the Prime Minister belongs to, now what is the problem here? This paragraph talks about the problem. Why this problem? The center has a different party. The states have different parties. If the Prime Minister belongs to one party and the officials addressed are from a state run by another, there is bound to be resentment that the elected representatives of the state are being bypassed. Obviously, center has one party and states another party or different parties. Now the center ignores the state governments and deals with officials directly. That results in resentment. There's one important word, bound to be resentment. Bound to be, important from grammar point of view. There is bound to be, it isn't present. So what exactly does the word resentment mean? It means a feeling of anger, a feeling of displeasure because you feel you have been treated unfairly. not fairly treated. In the present case, it is true that the center has a major role in the pandemic response. This is a backdrop to write this, which looks like out of context. In the present case, it is true that the center has a major role in the pandemic response. Center has a major role to play when it comes to the response related to the pandemic. Based on that, the next sentence talks about the Disaster Management Act has been invoked to specify guidelines on lockdowns, restrictions, and relaxations, and to ensure smooth medical supplies. There's one important word, invoke. In this particular context, usually it goes with religion, it goes with gods, deities, goddesses, but in this context, it means to use a law in order to achieve something for a particular purpose. However, it would be in the larger interest of the country, an important phrase you have to remember. However, contrasting information, it would be in the larger interest of the country if events and discussions are held in such a way that the political structures at the state are not seen to be undermined. So, what exactly does the sentence talk about? What does it talk about? However, in the larger interest of the country, if all these events and discussions are held in such a way that the political parties or structures at the state level, they get due respect and they're treated in a fair manner. Otherwise, it looks like they are being made less effective. There's one important word, undermined. Undermined means to make something less effective or to weaken something. Now, how does the editorial end? There ought to be no scope for complaints. So, when it comes to dealings between the center and the states, the editorial says there ought to be no scope for complaints. There should not be any complaints whatsoever, such as the one made by West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. The chief ministers felt humiliated when all of them were not allowed to speak to the PM in a virtual interaction. A standard phrase in the limelight right now because of COVID-19. Humiliated, an important word. Humiliate someone, make someone feel ashamed or feel something like worthless. In a way, you can also say humiliate someone, insult someone, make someone feel ashamed or feel bad about oneself. That's it about the editorial. Not that easy to comprehend. Usually, I tell students any editorial related to, yes, undermined, weaken. Shankar, that's absolutely right. Now let us go to the enrichment part from the editorial. Let us start with vocabulary. Circumvention, very important when you come across a passage related to environment, preserving ecosystems, you come across this word. An important word, it is in the limelight. Avoid something cleverly or illegally. You take advantage of the loopholes in the law and you try to avoid them. Then you have to use the word circumvention, which is not a good thing. Obviously, it has a negative connotation. Bypass, everyday English word, avoid something. Wielding goes with everyday English as well as effective English. Have and be able to use power. You have power and you're able to use power, and usually you show a stick or a tool to frighten someone or to intimidate someone. That meaning goes with everyday English, not with this particular context. Refrain, restrain, refrain. Stop oneself from doing something bad. Usually, something bad. Counterparts, persons with the same functions in a different place. Precedent, earlier event used as an example. Citing, quoting. Obliged, legally or morally bound to do something. Obligation comes from this word, oblige. Stipulate, demand or specify a requirement. Stipulate goes with agreements or contracts. Comply goes with rules and regulations, to obey an order or a rule. A resentment, an important word, a feeling of anger or displeasure because you feel you have been treated unfairly. Invoke, you have got in the recent past many a time. Use a law to achieve something. Use a law to achieve something. Undermined, important word, lessen the effectiveness of something or weaken something. Humiliated, to make someone feel ashamed or lose respect. Humility is different, humiliation is different. Humility means being down to earth, being modest, and not being proud. He is known for his humility. There's a great person, a personality, celebrity. He is very modest, he is down to earth, Then we say he shows a lot of humility when he interacts with others. That has a positive connotation. But humiliation, insult, makes someone feel ashamed. That has a negative connotation. Now let us go to the enrichment part from a comprehension point of view. This is very important. A basic question, what is this editorial about? I have already answered, but try to rephrase and use your own sentences and try to write your own way. Thank you very much, Shiv Kumar. What comes with great responsibility? Great responsibility comes. Keywords easy to locate the answer. In the context of the editorial, what is an obligation of the center? Two keywords, obligation of the center. What is quite unusual for leaders in the central political executive? Again, three to four keywords, easy to locate, should not be a problem. Does the Prime Minister addressing district magistrates or collectors have a precedent? Does it have a precedent? Easy to answer based on the keywords. Now it is time for you guys to respond. It is your time. Have a look at these five sentences, not easy in my opinion, rather difficult. And try to locate the errors. Lengthy sentences, not at all easy. First, you read the sentence carefully and meticulously. Yes, it has a precedent. It does have a precedent. To use the exact wording from the editorial, emphatic, it does have a precedent. Shivakumar deserves by all means. Last year, during the sessions, he was quite enthusiastic, inquisitive, proactive. He would be the first person to respond, and he would never bring down his spirit, always high spirits. He deserves the success by all means. Remove as who is this? Sunita, absolutely right. First one to respond. So, where is the error? The verb considered, it does not take the adverb as. As should not be there. Considered something, considered hazardous. It cannot use the word as. As is not correct. Very good. The only one to get it right. That's a bit surprising. We have got similar questions many a time. We got in the past questions related to certain verbs which don't take as. Consider, call, appoint. Please go to the second sentence. This is the toughest in my opinion and have given similar questions in many competitive exams. If you get this right, you're very good at English. I will definitely appreciate. Let us wait and watch. Sentence number two, the toughest. And mind you, in different competitive exams, they have given questions based on this pattern. Among, where is this among? No, no. Question number two. A new challenge in the form of a fungal infection, namely mucormycosis, has emerged and reported from many states amongst. Nothing wrong with this. Amongst has got two different functions. Very good that you spotted. What is the difference between among and amongst? Usually I tell students you have to look at the sentence very carefully or meticulously. The basic difference, if the word after the preposition begins with a vowel letter or a vowel sound, we should use amongst, and it begins with a consonantal letter, a consonantal sound, we should use among. You must have used that, and based on that, you must have thought it should not be amongst, it should be among. But I also usually I tell students it has two different functions. It should be used before a word that begins with a vowel letter or a vowel sound, one function. What is the other function? It goes with written English, it goes with formal English. It is a literary expression. It is a literary expression. When it is used as a literary expression, this rule of vowel sound, consonantal sound, or letter doesn't come into picture. Based on that, there's nothing wrong with this. No, no, no one has got it. Here, actually, a new challenge, please listen very carefully. After that, you can ask the questions. A new challenge in the form of a fungal infection, namely mucormycosis, has emerged. This is in present perfect. Has emerged. Something has emerged. And after this is one clause. After that, there is another clause. If both the clauses take the same verb, then you don't have to repeat the verb. But the clauses take different verbs, then you have to mention the verb that goes with the second clause. So here, there is an error. Please listen very carefully. Has emerged and is reported. Has emerged and is reported. Two different. Who is this aspirant? Oh, that's very good. I don't know what time you have posted that, but I've just said, given the answer. Has emerged, one clause, present perfect, and is reported. They reported. It is report. They report. It is reported. It is in present tense. Different clause, present. So you cannot ignore or drop the verb. This is the toughest, in my opinion. And what is a rule you have to remember? If different clauses in a sentence take different verbs, you have to mention the verbs. But if different clauses in a sentence take the same verb, you don't have to mention the second verb in the second clause. That is a rule you have to remember. Yes, it is definitely a nice question, Yakub. I have every question I spend some time and I think from different dimensions. Some are challenging from grammar point of view, some are challenging from meticulous reading point of view, some are challenging from rules point of view. Depends. No, is reported. They report. It is reported. Present, a fact. We cannot use has reported. We cannot use, Sunita, we cannot use present perfect. It should be in present tense. Based on the context, that is the reason. Based on the context, the idea, it is reported. They're still reporting. It's a fact. For a fact, we use present tense, not present perfect. Has emerged. An event that happened in the past, time is not mentioned, so we are supposed to use present perfect. The second clause talks about a fact. Any fact, we should use present tense. That is the reason. Who is this? Ramu Jyoti or Bhavana? Kalyan? Naidu? I think a lot of students, I missed the names. She said, the moment you see words like said, told, ordered, reported, requested, you should think of indirect speech. Then all the verbs go into a corresponding past. She said that, she said that is understood. She thought she would. She thought she would, no problem, be allowed to raise issues relating to the pandemic, but is shocked at not being allowed to speak. You cannot use a verb in present. In this context, it should be was shocked. Reported speech, was shocked. Dispose of means, Sunita has a question. I think we got this yesterday. Disposing of, dispose of means to get rid of something, to dump something. You have something that is of no use, or you have something that is dangerous. What do? You dispose it off, means you get rid of that. Where is this? Which sentence? Please mention the sentence number. That is very important. Disposing of, getting rid of. Sentence number 1. By disposing of bodies as the numbers are swelling. To get rid of, either by burning or burying, whatever. This is again an important question. When I saw this, I was really happy. A challenging question. What is this related? Please mention the question number. Now we have a lot of students are responding, and if you don't mention the question number, and I'm doing very fast, keeping the time factor in mind, I cannot make out, I don't remember the words in different sentences. My only request, mention the question number, then mention the keyword, whatever you want to get clarified. Many doctors in the country have been fallen by the deadly virus. This again, if you get this right, you should be very happy. No, no, no. I don't think you can get it. Not that I'm trying to underestimate your ability or your expertise or your skill. It is difficult, practically very difficult. But you have got this rule, already have learned confusing verbs. There are two confusing verbs. One is fall, fell, fallen. And what is the other one? Fell, felled, felt. Regular classes, I have told many a time, the word fell is very important from the exam point of view. They have given in SBI, other competitive exams, not easy under pressure because already you have this spell in your mind established. You think of this, context is in the past, so you think the sentence is right. And the past participle fallen. But actually, the word fell, please listen very carefully. This is for the first time I'm giving the meaning of this particular verb. Usually I give one meaning. Today only I have come across a second meaning. Based on that, I brought this sentence. Fell generally means cut down. It goes with trees. You have learned this already. This is the first meaning of the word fell, felled, felled. What is the other meaning? To kill, to kill. Please listen very carefully. This has the potential to come in the exam. Fell, felled, felled. It has two different meanings. One meaning, cut down trees. They have used already SBI, other competitive exams. They have given questions. The second meaning, I myself have come across for the first time. The second meaning. What is the second meaning of fell? To kill. Now you substitute. What is the verb you are supposed to use here? Fell. What is the past participle? Felt. It is in passive voice. Many doctors in the country have been felled. Means what? Have been killed by the deadly virus. Have been killed by the deadly virus. Then it makes sense. The deadly virus has killed many doctors in the country. Active voice. Many doctors in the country have been killed by the deadly virus. Now you substitute killed with felt. Then you get the answer. But not easy, mind you, not at all easy. Now let us go to the last one. Again, an important one, but you will be able to get it. Should not be that difficult for you guys. How come no response? All of a sudden, go to the last sentence. Some questions are really quite challenging. I feel very happy when I come across those sentences because they have the potential you may get in the exam. And you practice here, then it becomes easy for you in the exam. How come no response? The last one. Fall, fell, fallen. It goes with everyday English. He falls regularly. Whenever he goes for a walk, he falls. Present. He fell in the park yesterday, looking at someone. Third one, he has fallen recently. That goes with everyday English, an easy word. Fall, fell, fallen. You got to focus on fell, felled, felled. That is a new one, and it has got two different meanings. We have come across the new one today. Now, this is a bit challenging, but easy. Are succeeded. No, I don't think you guys have got it right. Sentence number 5. Very good. Who is this? Shiv Kumar has got it right. The first one. This is based on parallel expression. In bank exams, quite often they ask questions related to parallel expression. Means what? You use a few adjectives, a few nouns, a few verbs. They should be in the same form. Polarizing, accentuating, accentuating, and employment. They are not in the same form. The third word is not in the same form. It should be in the ing form. Based on that, here you cannot use employment of employing the idiom. It should be employing, polarizing, accentuating, employing, all in the same form, ing form. That is parallel expression, not easy under pressure. Now, this is from an international magazine related to science and technology. No, already we have used that. We cannot use it. There are restrictions. Shiv Kumar, thanks for the suggestion, but we cannot use it. We have already used that one. I sent a message last night, if you remember. We cannot use something like that. Please go to this para jumble, science and technology related from an international magazine. I'm giving you time to read because lengthy parts, not easy. Pooja is the first one to respond. She says D. Someshwar Rao also. Sunil, Yakub. Yes, absolutely right. What is the first one here? D is the first one. Perfect. The Andromeda Galaxy or M31 is the nearest large neighbor of our Milky Way. Milky Way is our galaxy. The nearest galaxy is the Andromeda Galaxy. Though it sits some 2.5 million light years away. That is the first one. Very good. What is the second one? B is not the second one. No, I'm afraid it is not the second one. I'm afraid means I'm sorry, not that I'm scared or frightened. 1D is right. 2E is not correct. 2B is not correct. A bit difficult. Who is this? Someshwar Rao. He has got it right. C is the second one. That makes it, it stands for the Andromeda Galaxy. That makes it the most distant object regularly visible with the naked eye. Naked means not covered. DC. Sandeep has come up with all the five. E. What is the third one? By some estimates, the Andromeda Galaxy contains roughly 1 trillion stars. There's a comma. E. And it stretches more than 2 lakh light years in diameter. More information, we use and. Last sentence, that is significantly bigger than the Milky Way, which more recent estimates suggest is 1,50,000 light years across. EBA. Absolutely right. Sandeep, you're right. DCEBA. Let us have a look at the actual paragraph. The Andromeda Galaxy, it's all about that and talks about the features. And because of those features, that makes it the most distant. It stands for the subject, the Andromeda Galaxy. By some estimates, again the features, trillion stars and 2 lakh light years, and comparison, that is significantly bigger than the Milky Way. That is the last sentence. Now, this again, word swap not easy, you got to do very carefully. Word swap. You see four words, two words are not in the correct position, you have to change or you have to swap those two words. To make it easy for you guys, only two words you have to swap. Slowly I'll try to raise the standards, but for the time being, of the four words, two words have to be swapped. Which two words you have to respond? AD, doses, inoculations. Who is this? Rajshekar. Perfect. Absolutely right. After that, Sunita also says a lot of students have got it right. Here, as inoculations help a sense of normalcy. Nothing wrong with this. With a little hope means no hope. Nothing wrong with that. We have to change doses and inoculations. We cannot say vaccine inoculations, vaccine doses. Here, inoculations. Very good. These two have to be swapped. Go to sentence number two. Inoculation, yes, but your vaccine doses, already vaccine is there. We have to use the word doses. Please go to sentence number two. Use your grammar knowledge and word combinations, contextual awareness, very important. Mention the sentence number 2CD. Who is this? Rajshekar. Experts have warned that, aside from the significant aspect, have warned, nothing wrong with that. Inequity in vaccinations, in something, in what? Vaccinations. So you have to consider significant humanitarian. Aside from the humanitarian aspect, the global inequity in vaccinations can affect wealthier countries that have vaccinated significant portions. Significant adjective and humanitarian also adjective, but context is important. So here it should be. These two have to be swapped. BD. It should be DB. That's right. Please go to sentence number three. They are doing community groups to persuade people to get vaccinated, has been urging. First, you check grammar, then you check word combinations, then you check contextual awareness, context. Yes, Naresh, that's right. Significant, humanitarian. Those words have to be swapped. My only request, please mention the question number 3AD. Who is that? Sandeep. Absolutely right. Uday Kumar, Kiran, and Manikanta. Yes, I see this name. Sounds familiar. Here, they are doing is not correct. They are urging. Community groups. Urge means to make a request, formal request. It goes with the formal English. Everyday English, we use the word request, formal, urge. Request earnestly, sincerely, a lot. Persuade people to get vaccinated, nothing wrong. Has been doing for months. You have to change AD. Fourth, sentence number four. The racial neighborhoods are partly the result of access with more robust, strong healthcare and vaccine distribution in some disparities than others. Question number four, Sunanda says AD, absolutely right. You cannot say racial neighborhoods. Neighborhood means that's an American expression. Residential area or a colony. Area, colony, we use, they are British examples, expressions. Neighborhood, American expression. Here it should be the racial disparities. Sorry about that. Racial disparities are partly the result of access with more robust healthcare and vaccine distribution in some neighborhoods. These two have to be changed. Please go to the last sentence related to word swap. Skepticism means doubting something. Doubt, skeptic, someone who doubts everything. Cynical, someone who has a negative attitude. Both are different. Cynical attitude, sick attitude, negative connotation. Skepticism, doubting everything. Normalcy means normal situation without any problem. Usually we use that word after some sort of agitation or a violent reaction from the crowds or a pandemic or natural disaster. Then we say the city is returning to normalcy. Means what? Normal situation. That goes with newspapers, newspaper English. Quite often you come across the word normalcy. BD. Hispanic, and significant. Skepticism, nothing wrong with that, doubting things. Interviews with more than 40 black, nothing wrong with that. Here is a significant significant factor, important factor, black and Hispanic residents. Hispanic is an important word. No, these two have to be changed. Hispanic means Hispanics, people from those who have Spanish origin and people from Central and South America with Spanish origin. They are there in the US, a lot of them. They are called Hispanics. Now let us go to the last exercise. Hispanic, that's what I've just said, Pooja. People of or people with Spanish origin. Spain, we use the word adjective Spanish. Those with Spanish origin and the people with Spanish origin coming or going to the US from Central America or South America. Latin America or South America was colonized by Spain. So you come across a lot of Spanish people in Latin America and they have this Spanish origin and they are known as Hispanics. Which one is that? Okay, circumvention, part of speech, noun, avoid cleverly, see, bypass, easy, a verb could be a noun, could be an adjective, bypass road, typical expression, adjective, bypassed verb, avoid, only avoid. And what is the next one? No, no, cynical means suspecting something negative, expecting something negative to happen, cynical attitude. Skeptic means doubting something, wielding, wield verb, using power in this context, refrain verb, stop oneself from, counterparts, counterparts singular, counterparts plural, noun obviously, same functions, person with same functions in some other place. Space constraint I could not give, but it's understood. Already have explained. Precedent, noun, similar event, earlier event, which is used as an example. H is the answer. Citing, cite verb, quoting. You have got this recently, many a time. Obliged verb, obliged person could be adjective. Morally bound, I stipulate, demand, or specify some requirement. Here it is a verb and G is the answer. Comply, complied, a regular verb. It means what? Obey or follow. Now, before I wind up, I've got something important to say. Please listen very carefully. I have created Murthy's English, a Telegram group. The purpose of that to send the notifications, to post important information. And mind you guys, it is not an interactive group. Only I can post. You're always at the receiving end. You cannot post, and it is not an interactive group. The purpose to send the notifications to based on your doubts to provide some useful information. So if you go to the description of the video, you find the link, Murthy's English Telegram group. If you want to join, please click on the link. That is one thing. And one more thing, a lot of students say they are not aware of this, and do remember to subscribe and share. Then others will also come to know. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. I will see you.